morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good. That's a Trinbagonian welcome. Mr. Joala Rambaran, Governor of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Douglas Melville, Info Network Chair and CEO Ombudsman for Banking Settlements and Investments, known as OBSI of Canada. Members of the Info Network Committee and Secretariat, delegates of Info 2014, other specially invited guests, and members of the media. As we officially open Info 2014, allow me to thank you for participating in this dynamic conference and for making it a reality. My task this morning is a simple but important one, as I introduce two gentlemen to bring greetings in their respective capacities. First, I invite Governor Rambaran, who will then be followed by Mr. Douglas Melville. Governor, I invite you to address the audience.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Mr. Douglas Melville, Chair of Info Network, Ms. Suzanne Roach, our Financial Services Ombudsman here in Trinidad and Tobago, other Financial Services Ombudsmen, delegates, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and certainly a warm welcome to Trinidad and Tobago and to Info 2014. Consumers are part of every transaction that occurs on the planet. The consumer as depositor, policyholder, saver, and borrower is a central actor in the financial marketplace. Some 150 million new consumers of financial services join the global economy each year. While their money speaks, the voices of consumers are seldom heard. Mahatma Gandhi is reputed to have once advised, and I quote, "A customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. He is not an interruption of our work. He is the purpose of it. He is not an outsider of our business. He is part of it. We are not doing a favor by serving him. He is doing a favor by giving us the opportunity to do so." End of quote. We are paying dearly for not heeding the advice of the Mahatma, who is not at all known for business, but for his efforts to promote peace and for living a simple life. The global financial crisis that erupted in 2007 had many causes, and one reason, in my opinion, for the failure was the age-old cliche, profit first, people after. Perhaps if more too big to fail financial institutions heeded Gandhi's advice, the magnitude of the global crisis could have been smaller. More than half a decade after the collapse of the first financial giant, we are still counting the substantial toll on many lives. Millions of people lost their jobs. Countless families lost their homes, their humanity stripped, as some had to live in cars, in shelters, or on streets. And many more now have to work much longer so they can make up for lost financial ground in order to retire comfortably. While depositors, policyholders, and all other consumers in the financial system are the heart of this complex system, their value, their importance were taken for granted. They were overlooked by the people they trusted with their pensions, their life savings, and other financial products. But there are many parties in the financial system. We have to acknowledge that gaps in financial consumer protection, which is our domain, also fuel the devastating global crisis. As we know, financial institutions were more than eager to offer and peddle new financial instruments that carried higher risk, no down payment mortgages at low interest rates, and no collateral, shades of the subprime crisis. This was done without ensuring the very people who were the foundation of the system understood the risk involved. While I do agree consumers have a responsibility to learn and to understand the contracts into which they're entering, financial institutions have an even greater responsibility to protect the very people from whom they're trying to make money by ensuring their customers fully understand terms of conditions and the risk versus rewards equation. Today, financial consumer protection has jumped to the front burner on the agendas of many central banks and governments. Countries are intensifying efforts to restore trust in financial markets, protect consumers from improper conduct, and ensure access to fair, transparent, and competitive financial marketplaces. But even as we now all recognize, perhaps belatedly and painfully, the important role of consumer protection in promoting financial stability, consumers are still taking on debt at a rapid pace to buy houses, cars, educate their children, or just pay bills. Global household debt has expanded rapidly in the past 5 years, currently standing at around US $40 trillion, the same level as in 2007. This is telling us that while the crisis is still morphing, the same fertile conditions that existed at the time it first erupted are still very present, given that consumers are still highly active. Since consumer borrowing has not slowed, we, the policymakers, must ensure we close the gaps in financial consumer protection that have existed for almost a decade. This brings me to you, the Financial Services Ombudsman. As unbiased and fair investigators of consumer complaints, you all occupy a unique space in your country's financial landscape. Our Office of the Financial Services Ombudsman, for example, remains the only financial ombudsman scheme in the Caribbean. Outside of the courts, you are literally the only hope for consumers who have disputes with their banks, insurance companies, or other financial service providers. You are seen as credible, independent, and impartial. Ironically, because of these very admirable qualities, the financial ombudsman seems to be a mere spectator. You stand far away from consumers. You do not stand up for consumers. So this morning, my message to you is a simple one. You have a responsibility to help consumers stand up and speak for themselves. Listen to the voices of consumers. Each one of your offices already has infrastructure in place to listen to the voices of consumers. Each ombudsman office handles numerous complaints and develops many case studies. In its 10 years of operations, our Financial Services Ombudsman's Office has handled almost 2,500 complaints within its narrow terms of reference. More than 45 of the banking complaints were directed towards issues related to account transactions, card services, and loans and credit. And at least 2/3 of the insurance complaints relate to undue delay in settling claims, inadequate settlement, and denial of claims. More importantly, our office has also received close to 1,500 complaints which fall outside its terms of reference. And the office has also produced several case studies on banking and insurance consumer issues. If we all make this complaint data publicly available on our websites, we can help make each consumer's voice count and produce a chorus of voices which can change unfair practices at financial institutions. We need to learn from consumers in their own words. A Tell Your Story feature on our websites would give consumers the opportunity to share their experiences, whether those experiences are positive or negative. Some may deride consumer complaints as mere anecdote. I readily acknowledge that not every complaint is an actual violation of the law. However, I firmly believe complaints about financial institutions give us an insight into what's happening to consumers in real time. These are not just complaints, but they provide insight into areas of consumer education we can strategically place emphasis. And while education is not strictly a core function of a financial services ombudsman, this is where we need to advance our approach in policy and operations. Earlier this month, here in Trinidad and Tobago, we launched the Financial Inclusion Development Agency, called FIDA. FIDA is the Financial Inclusion Education and Training arm of the Central Bank. FIDA will work closely with our Financial Services Ombudsman and use the very same complaints to help us prioritize emerging areas for financial education. Through reputable education and training, we will demonstrate that financial knowledge gives power to the voices of consumers. And every single time we take a complaint, we must remember consumers are reaching out to us because they trust us. Every single time we take a complaint, we encounter someone who has the courage to reach out to us for help. We must applaud that courage. We must remember, all consumers usually ask is to be simply treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. And in our hearts, we all know consumers deserve no lesser treatment. Please allow me to give you just 3 stories from our experience here in Trinidad and Tobago related to the voices of consumers. The first story is about Lakshmi, a middle-aged public servant. Her bank engaged emails with an individual who was not a principal on her account. The bank allowed the individual to withdraw the entire balance on Lakshmi's account. At no time did the bank contact her to verify that the individual given instructions was indeed a bona fide member of the family. Lakshmi's daughter, a signatory to the account, raised the issue with the bank, which then told her that the unknown person was providing them with instructions. She sought the assistance of our office. The bank had to refund the entire sum to Lakshmi, who was swindled by fraudsters. Her daughter appeared on national television to tell her story. In this instance, it was clear that a group of transactions were being conducted by fraudsters using the phishing technique. The bank failed outright by not engaging the bona fide members of the account. The second story is about Paul, a senior citizen, to whom an insurance agent sold an inappropriate $30,000 investment instrument. After a few months, Paul requested the value of his investment and was advised that it was $10,000 less than the amount placed. Paul queried the value and was told that $10,000 were the administrative fees. Paul became distressed and decided to terminate the investment, but was told the insurance company would have to deduct another $11,000 as early encashment. Paul sought our assistance After much investigation and deliberation, the insurance company agreed to refund Paul his entire amount, agreeing that the investment sold was totally wrong for Paul's age and for his financial status in life. The final story is about Avinash, a young IT professional. Avinash attempted to make a $500 withdrawal at an ATM right here in Port of Spain. The receipt dispensed stating no funds were available in his account. Avinash tried another ATM and met with the same response. He then visited his home branch the next day to be told that his account was short by $1,000. He immediately queried this assertion since no funds were dispensed, and he lodged a formal complaint with his bank. Dissatisfied with the lack of response, he visited our office. Investigations revealed after Avinash left the first ATM, the machine did dispense the funds, but these were taken by another customer. Since the bank delayed its investigation, and because the bank receipt stated no funds were available, the bank agreed to give Avinash an ex gratia payment of $1,000 without prejudice. I share these stories about Lakshmi, Paul, and Avinash because they connect us to real people. Their stories are the heart and soul of the complaint. They convey the frustration and distress people feel when they have to struggle with difficult financial issues. Each story is, of course, unique to the people who tell them, but I'm sure you will find there's much that is familiar with all three stories. I am sure many of you can identify with the maddening frustration of Lakshmi, Paul, and Avinash in dealing with their banks and insurance company. While they all had the foresight to approach our office, so many other consumers run into solid brick walls when they are seeking to clear up facts about their financial transactions. I firmly believe these stories should be made public, of course, with the consumer's consent. When consumers tell a story in their own words, they form the heart and soul of the complaint. And for many consumers, it is worth a great deal just to share their story and know it has been heard. By sharing their stories with the public, we are giving consumers an opportunity to be heard by the entire world, not just by a Financial Services Ombudsman Office and its officials. We therefore have a responsibility to help consumers stand up and speak for themselves. There is indeed power in their stories. That power can help build a lasting foundation, which may even help prevent the reoccurrence of another global financial crisis. I thank you.
Many thanks for hosting this annual gathering of the Info Network and for sharing with us your world-renowned Trinity hospitality. We've all had I think, a really good first taste of that, and we look forward to nothing less for the balance of our time together with you here. We are very proud as the Info Network to bear witness to the tremendous growth and success of the OFSO here in Trinidad and Tobago. Our congratulations for all that you folks have accomplished here and for what you can teach us with what you've successfully implemented here. In terms of our network growth and success, I think is also how we would describe our own gatherings, wouldn't you say? 34 member schemes are here in Trinidad and Tobago out of a total membership of 56 right now within the Info Network. Our member schemes come from every continent now, except Antarctica. We're working on that one. If anyone would like to volunteer, perhaps we can find an institution that would be interested. In that light, I would be remiss as we gather here to not recognize the tremendous contribution and leadership that David Thomas has brought to this organization, having just in the process of retiring from his role at the UK Financial Ombudsman Service, but all that he has done to help this scheme network grow over the last 10 years or so. I think we all owe him a tremendous vote of thanks and a round of applause, please. David, thank you. Also, a warm welcome this year to two new schemes that join this growing global family. Françoise Sweerts from Ombudsfin in Belgium, who has attended meetings before, but has now brought her scheme into the Info Network family. Welcome. Thank you very much. And forgive me, with the lights in my eyes, it's hard to see folks out there, but Yaserik Serbayev from the Republic of Kazakhstan, the banking ombudsman, who is a new welcome member of the family here. Good morning. Welcome. So to all of us, let's have a wonderful week. Let's renew some old friendships, make some new ones, share perspectives, be active participants in the wonderful program that Suzanne and her team have put together for us. There's a different flavor this year. Again, we would expect nothing less from Trinidad and Tobago. There's a different approach this year that I think we should all embrace and find some things that perhaps we want to take for future gatherings as well, and bask in the warmth and hospitality of our Trinbagonian friends. So again, thank you, Governor, and thank you, Suzanne and your team, for your leadership and your efforts to make this annual meeting of the Info Network possible. And to all of us, let's have a great and productive week and a few wonderful days together. Thank you very much.